What is stigma, though? What exactly is stigma, and why do we do that? Is it like a cultural thing? Is it just a human thing? Is it instinctual?
When you talk about stigma, to me, it's really about reducing that stigma. It's about getting back to the story.
What is narrative therapy exactly?
Narrative therapy says that the person isn't the problem. The problem is the problem. If we want to stop the cycle, one of the best things we could do is put humanity back in the words that we use. Let's stop defining people by what they do, and let's start defining people by who they are. Words are very, very impactful, and it takes years to recover from words, whether it's the words that we speak about ourselves or we speak on others.
Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with New Beginnings. My name is Teray, and I'm so glad that you're here. This podcast is about meaningful conversations that uplift, empower, and inspire transformation. Before we begin, please help us by taking a quick pre-survey. Your perspective helps us shape conversations that truly uplift, empower, and inspire transformation. Also, wait till the end for another quick message from me. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Others. Hi, this is Cheryl Chambers, a licensed clinical social worker at New Beginnings Family Services. And today you are invited to sit in and experience Conversations with New Beginnings. This is our brand new podcast. And today I have guest Teray Sturgis, who is a Dell State graduate, or soon to be Dell State graduate. She's our intern at New Beginnings. And we're here to just talk about the podcast that we actually received a grant through DSAM, Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. It's more of a grassroots initiative to be able to talk about destigmatizing of addiction, substance use, correct? So here I welcome you to New Beginnings and our first ever podcast. And I'm here with Teray Sturgis, who we're going to have a little conversation about what's going on at New Beginnings, but also about, our project and what the podcast entails.
Yeah.
Teray?
Again, so we're talking about stigma, right? So first thing I'll ask is, what do you want others to get out of this podcast?
When we originally saw the grant, I thought this would be an amazing. When we saw the grant and then started to look at the topics, what really hit home to me was the destigmatizing of substance use.
Right.
And I love that because, it really plays into narrative therapy. It plays into, being able to allow individuals to tell their story. And, it's this day and time, we have so much dehumanizing words that are being thrown out. You watch the news, you read social media. It's always these words that really dehumanize individuals.
Right.
And I really thought that this would be an opportunity to take advantage of getting that word out that, listen, we don't have to take away someone's humanity.
Right.
If we don't understand it, get it. If we're hurt by the choices, I get it. But let's not rip people of their humanity using our words.
That's so good. Okay, you said a lot just then. So you talked about stigma, you said storytelling, you talked about narrative therapy, language. What is stigma, though? What exactly is stigma, and why do we do that? Is it like a cultural thing? Is it just a human thing? Is it instinctual?
That's a good question, right? Like, to me, stigma. Now, what's easier for me to really sit on? Stigma, of course, is what stigma does is what really hits me.
Okay.
Stigma actually creates this level of guilt on individuals, shame. Stigma, like I said, strips people of their own stories, right? And their experiences. Stigma really dehumanizes individuals and doesn't allow people to really be able to own their own story. So, let's use the word crackhead, for example. If I say crackhead, that rips that individual. That person's a crackhead.
Yeah.
That rips them of them being able to tell their own story. You already have your story in your mind based off of that word.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You go whether you're going to Nino Brown
Mm.
in New Jack City, or whether you're looking at an individual out there, with a sign up saying that they're work for money.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
start to go there as somebody who what? Talk to me. If
Mm.
I say crackhead, what would you think about?
Well,
What is
the first well, you think about someone who still, you think about somebody who's out there struggling, you think about somebody who's you
asking for
can asking
$5,
for $5,
right?
somebody that for some people, somebody that you can exploit.
Yes.
And so that's a big thing too. So
Somebody come and do my house,
exactly.
fix my house
Car,
up,
clean your car out,
clean my
stuff like
car
that's
up.
so normal. And when you were talking, I thought about that because we've made it so normal to dehumanize people. Basically, it's like you said, it's in movies, it's in songs, it's just in our natural, it's just in our natural everyday conversation. So we've made it so normal.
And so can you see how it really strips the narrative
Yeah,
or the story of that person with that lived experience?
yeah.
Because now I just see them as what they do
Mhm.
and not who they are.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when you talk about stigma to me, it's really about reducing that stigma. It's about getting back to the story.
Yeah.
No one is born into this world thinking, "Oh, I'm going to use drugs and I'm going to get out here and I'm going to rob, steal, do this and that," right?
Right.
No one's doing that.
Right.
You go to any of the elementary schools, no one is standing up saying, "I'm going to be a
Yeah.
user when I get older,"
Right. What do you
right?
want to be when you grow up? I want to yeah.
Exactly. But yet, when those choices are made and the addiction is beginning to manifest, we start to point our fingers and start to really take away their ability to tell their own story
Mhm.
by calling them names,
Right. How do
right?
you think we got there though? Like how
Oh,
how did we
oh
get
my
to that
gosh.
place of
I hate
just
to
a lack
go
of empathy for I don't know.
the lack of empathy, right?
Okay.
I hate this. I really do. And I remember growing up and noticing like why are we calling and this is political. Hate to go political and
Mhm.
I don't really want to go political, but just growing up, you would hear like, these destigmatizing or not destigmatizing words
Mhm.
where you would hear terrorists,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You think of a terrorist, what do they automatically look like? What are they doing, right? A criminal,
Yeah.
right? A felon.
Mhm.
It takes people's
The
humanities.
labels.
Yes, if you think about Vietnam and
Mhm.
the war, and it was a tactic.
Yeah.
What I understand growing up and is that it was a tactic to really recognize who your enemy was and to really strip them of their humanity so that we could go to war.
Right.
But we're doing that to each other now.
Right. And I thought about it. It's a narrative. It's the narrative that they instead of using it for good, they used it to exploit or used it to paint the
But
picture
think
that they
about
wanted to paint.
if I'm gonna go to war,
Yeah.
am I gonna say
Right.
these
Right. Yeah.
people over
Yeah.
here that are nice, minding their own business, and these human beings we're going to fight because of X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
Or am I going to start dehumanizing them and
Mhm.
start to say, they are communists, they
Mhm.
are, whatever,
Yeah.
am I going to start just stripping them of their humanity so that I can justify me treating them a certain way.
Yes.
And so we start to see that in the drug epidemic,
Right. Right.
right?
Yep.
We start to see how people are starting to say that these words are escaping me right now, but I mean, well, of course, we've got the user, we got the dopehead,
Mhm.
we got the
Mhm. Base
junkie,
head.
basehead. We got a lot of different words
Yeah.
that we would use to strip people of what? Their humanity as well as their ability to tell their story.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So, why do you think that stigma or destigmatization matters just in the general sense?
So if we want to stop the cycle, I
Mhm.
love this.
Mhm.
If we want to stop the cycle, one of the best things we can do is put humanity back in the words that we use.
Okay.
Give that person their humanity back.
Yeah.
How can we give them their story back?
Mhm.
Allow them to be that human being. This is why I love narrative therapy so much. Narrative therapy says that the person isn't the problem. The
Mm.
problem is the problem.
Okay.
Let's stop making the person the problem, and let's start identifying that the actual problem is truly the problem.
Right.
And if you do that, then we have a human being with a problem, not the problem is the human being.
Okay.
And so that to me is powerful.
Okay.
And so with that being said, we can then be able to learn how to give people their story back, reclaim their narrative, allow them to be that human being that has this problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that we can then help. It also removes the shame and the guilt. Because imagine being that person that's constantly being, you're a crackhead,
Mm-hmm.
you're a dopehead, you're a junkie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of those are what? They're not meant to uplift.
No. No.
They're not meant to restore,
Right.
right? And, we have to be able to speak life into people, but we can't speak life stigmatizing.
Yeah.
Because again, being in this field, I work with people. I'm like, who are you?
Right.
And somebody will say, oh, all right, Trey, who are you? If I was to ask you, who are you? What would you say?
I'm a student. I don't know.
But a
That's
student is one of your roles.
That's
That's
true.
not who you
That's
are.
true. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So do you see how powerful? So the fact that you could say, I smoke crack,
Mm.
that's something you do. That's
That's
not
not who
who
you
you
are.
are.
Yeah.
So let's stop defining people by what they do, and let's start defining people by who they are.
Understood.
And that may, in a way, be able to bring in the humanity back to where it empowers individual to
Mm-hmm.
see that man or
Mm-hmm.
that woman in the mirror, that they can be able to say that I am a man too. I'm
Right.
a person too. I'm
Right.
somebody that matters.
Right. Okay. So what is narrative therapy exactly? Like what is narrative therapy?
So narrative therapy is about, giving back the ability, recognizing that our words do matter
Okay.
and that we all have a narrative about ourselves.
Okay.
We always have an experience. We always have words that define us in one way or another.
Okay.
So you have a situation where you grow up in a domestically violent home, right? And so your narrative or your thought process might be that all men are, I don't want to get married because it always ends in divorce,
Mm-hmm.
or I can't get along with others, or all men are the same.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do in narrative therapy is really help you to understand that your narrative is really focused, making you the problem. Is the narrative is really getting you to shy away and not recognize, again, the problem wasn't domestic violence. The problem wasn't you. The
Okay.
problem wasn't your dad. It wasn't your mom. The problem was the unhealthy situations that they found themselves in.
Okay.
How can we look at that situation and see it in a different light? How do we take different words? Remember, if life and death is in the power of the tongue,
Yeah.
how
Language
do
matters. Yeah.
language matters, and how do we use those words to empower?
Right.
I am an individual who had lived experience as someone that was exposed to domestic violence versus I lived in a home with domestic,
Right.
where my mom and dad were domestically violent against
Yeah.
each other.
Okay, so narrative therapy is more so of changing the narrative or maybe flipping the narrative of your story. Because earlier you mentioned storytelling. So I was just trying to figure out how they play into each other in terms of narrative
We
therapy and
all,
telling your story.
yes, thank you. We all have a story.
Okay.
We all, believe it or not, whether we speak about whether we talk about it or not, we all have a story.
Okay.
We all have a story of how we got here and why, and I like as a therapist is to be able to explore that story with you
Okay.
and see how that story is distorted. Right? Those words, again,
Right.
we actually inflict. And sometimes it's not society who's inflicting those negative stereotypes or that stigma on us. It's us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or it's a learned behavior pattern. And so what I like to do is to get to the story. What's your story? How can you see that from a different light? How can you look at that from a different perspective? And again, that's what narrative therapy is, but also you can't have narrative therapy without being able to tell a story.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that definitely makes it clearer to me, just in terms of how they relate to each other in the process of changing that narrative. I think it's a big thing for even people to be able to speak their story, right? Because sometimes
Oh,
that's a
yes.
hard thing to do too, right? Because we don't necessarily grow up in households a lot of times, historically, where we expressed ourselves and where we, because especially if it was something bad, right? Because or something negative, because now it's shame, so we just keep it in.
Exactly. And come on, let's be honest. Especially in some cultures, children were what? Seen and not
Not heard,
heard,
yep, yep.
right?
What goes
Like
on in my house
stays
stays
in
in
my
my house.
house, right? There's a lot of things in which we had to keep.
Yeah,
I can go back in my childhood and be like, oh, such and such happened. And then get my mom or my dad coming back. Why would you say that?
right,
It's
right,
like,
right,
I didn't know that was wrong.
right.
And you learn early on not to be able to speak your truth.
Yes.
You learn early on that this must be right
Mhm.
because I get in trouble when I speak the things that I thought that I saw,
Right.
right?
And you internalize that shame, and then so speak about that too in terms of shame and recovery.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, I truly believe that a part of recovery is being able to conquer that shame,
Okay.
right? This again, we go back. No one's standing in line saying, okay, you know, let me be a user,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Let me have this experience. But we have so much shame and guilt connected to the choices that we make.
Yes.
And as an individual, it's so hard to kind of overcome those narratives of that shame that I'm always going to mess up. I'm always going to, I keep I'm not going to be any good. All those words that they used or that individual used to keep them down. It's
Right.
very oppressive.
Yeah.
And if they're already struggling with that, and then as a society we come back through and we're constantly throwing those same words out to them, where we go from here?
Right. Where's the love? Where's the uplift? Where's the
How do they have a chance?
right.
That's another reason why in the 12-step community, it's about changing person, places, or things. We always focus that those person, places, or things are people that are using, but sometimes it's the ones that bring the shame.
Right.
It's the ones that bring the guilt. It's the
Right.
ones that will always hold them captive or keep them arrested by the things that they did. Because remember, I'm not what I do, I am who I am.
Right. And I started laughing because a lot of times that's the people closest to us, our family.
Oh, and why? Why do we do that as family members? I really am starting to understand. I mean, I have people with lived experience in my family, and I'm sure everyone does,
Yeah.
right? One of the hardest things is understanding that for family members, we deal with a lot of pain and
Mhm.
letdown and hurt, which will cause you as a family member to stigmatize,
Mhm.
to dismiss, to really, because we're filtering all of that through our own pain.
Yeah.
I think about, my brother, bless his heart, who has his own lived experience.
Right.
But I, as his sister, had always dealt with abandonment and letdown because of his lived experience.
Okay.
And that hurts. And so it's so hard. I have to consciously keep working at he's still my brother. He's
Mm.
still that little, my older brother at that. He's still that kid that, and look back at the pictures. But sometimes it's so hard to see the humanity in an individual that has hurt you or that
Absolutely.
has let you down or hasn't shown up
Yeah.
because of their own challenges.
Right. Yeah, when you said that so hard, you literally took the words right. I was about to say that must be something that's super hard to do. And a lot of families don't succeed at it.
No, we
Yeah.
put them right back in
Mhm.
those situations or in that same family. And sometimes we have to separate.
Right.
We have to separate to heal, right?
Yeah.
And which also means that family members need to come up with new narratives about those experiences. Like I said, even with my brother and his lived experience, I had to actively work through what was happening.
Mm.
One, it wasn't purposeful, right? Two, he has a heart. I know, I know the guy, I know the kid, I know the little boy that's inside of
You
him,
know who he is, not what he does.
what he does. But it gets so convoluted
Yeah.
because, the arrest, the running around midnight looking for him, and all those things get
Mm,
kind of, you got to filter through all of those experiences to remember who he is.
right. And that's in addition to all of your individual challenges and things that go on. And so, why do you think that you were able to come to that place of being able to see who he is and not just accept what he does?
It's not overnight, and I don't even know if I'm all the way there.
Okay.
But I think I'm closer than I was, and it's about having those conversations. And every now and then he comes up to where we're able to have, some conversations that really help me connect back to his humanity.
Okay.
And that really helps. When we're able to do that, I'm able to listen and let him speak, and not always to be dismissive of, oh, it's just when he's clean, like we really are dismissive, especially as
Yeah.
family members, of individuals who really want to be able, with lived experience, who really just want to be honest. We always think that they're getting over, that
Mm-hmm.
they're.
Mm-hmm. And I was gonna say that goes back to just far back culturally, right? Just in all the things that we've internalized because of all the things that we've been through as a culture, as a race, right? And like you said earlier, that spills out into how we treat even our family members. So, family and the stigma that we put on others, who have challenges is, and studies actually show that they will progress better when they are in a loving environment and when they do get the care and the warmth and the understanding that they need. So,
Exactly, which means that you can't treat everyone the same.
mhm,
It was really a time in our community, in the recovery community, it was about hard love, tough love, right?
mhm,
You got to let them fall, right?
mhm, mhm.
You can't let everyone fall.
Right,
Sometimes people don't work, it doesn't work that way.
right,
You've got to figure out what that balance is, and as a family member, you got to figure out where you are and what you're capable of doing,
right.
right?
Yeah,
um I can't imagine, having a child that has that lived experience and turning my back,
right.
right?
Yeah,
But then at the same time, I've got to figure out where do I, what's my safe space
right,
while I'm loving you? And sometimes my safe space, like with my brother, my safe space, I can love you, and I'm absolutely gonna always love you, but it might be at a distance,
mhm,
right? So we have to figure out that. But I mean, if he ever calls, I'm not gonna not be there,
right.
right?
Mm,
Because I gotta stay true to myself. But it really, this whole journey has been always about getting back to the human being,
okay.
and let's stop with speaking out of fear, speaking out of anger,
Trauma.
trauma, hurt, right?
Yeah,
Resentment,
yeah,
right? I had all of those. I got all, and I probably still have to keep filtering through all of those. I have all of those, but I
right,
can't use those and to take away his humanity. When I am using those weapons, I'm stripping another individual of their humanity, and that's not right.
right. So how can we be informed, trauma informed? I know that's one of the like newer, kind of key words in mental health in the state of Delaware. I think it was a few years ago we became a trauma informed state. So how can we be trauma informed in relation to recovery?
Wow, that's a big one because I think it hits so many, you know, avenues. I think we got to be open,
Mm,
right? We got to be able to hear what people and understand, and not rush to a judgment, but to recognize if somebody's saying I'm being triggered, or I don't like the way that you're speaking to me, or you can't just always handle me in a way that you think that you need to handle me.
right,
We have to recognize, my grandmother used to always say, by the grace of God, there go I, right?
hmm,
Like, put yourself in someone else's shoes.
right,
How would you want to be treated? Right? How do you want to be seen? And if we start learning to do that, I think that we are on the road of being able to be more trauma informed, because we start to hear what they need, what they want, right? And we want that respect,
Right.
right? We
Yeah,
would want the same thing.
absolutely.
We don't want anyone to, but sometimes we get so, again, it goes back to that trauma, right? Like sometimes we're so used to the trauma. We're so used to being mishandled. We're
Yeah,
so used to being spoken down to, and we don't know how to advocate for ourselves. That's a whole nother, can of worms, right? We have, as an individual, we have to recognize, what do I need?
yeah.
What do I need as an individual? How do I start to treat myself that way,
Mhm.
in a respectful and loving way? And then if I learn to treat me in a respectful, safe space, then I can teach you how to do the same.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is humility and vulnerability are kind
Mhm.
of what starts that. Because if we humble ourselves and realize that we could be in any positions in any position at any time, then we wouldn't be so judgmental, and we would take a little more time to consider someone else's shoes, as you said, and then vulnerability, being open, like you said, and just taking that time to really realize who we are, what we need, and seeking, whatever help or that we might need.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a journey, I
Mhm.
just, in this series, this podcast series, I just want to get the conversation started. I want us as a society to stop stripping people of their natural born right to be a human.
Mhm.
I get that we're angry. I get that there's a lot of money being thrown to this and that, and it's not fair. But no one has a right to
Mhm.
be stripped of their humanity. We are all human, no matter what color you are, what your beliefs, what your background. We are all human beings. And if we can get back to the core of recognizing that that human being deserves the same rights as you,
Mhm.
then maybe we can figure out how to problem solve from there. But let's get back there. So let's strip the words. Let's take out all the words. And you know what? Oh my goodness, you get me going again. I mean, because we read it. It's in the
Yeah.
newspapers,
Yeah.
right? It's in the newspaper. It's or the or the news, right? Like, or social media. We're always looking at these words that really do matter.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll leave it with this. But the old adage, I'm a little older, but the old adage used to be, sticks and stones
M
uh
May
may
break with my
may
bones,
yep, may break my bones, but what?
but words will never hurt me.
But words will never hurt me. That's a lie.
That is true. You're right.
Words do hurt.
Yeah.
Words destroy. Words, are very, very impactful.
Mhm.
And it takes years to recover from words, whether this the words that we speak about ourselves or we speak on others.
Mm.
And I think we've got to be a little bit more aware of that. And that's my hope for this podcast, is that we start to recognize, choose your words.
Mm. Okay. I
All
think
right.
that was a great way to end
All right.
it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, it's Teray again. Now you've heard the conversation. Now we want to hear from you. Take a moment to click the link in the description to our post survey so you can share what stood out to you, what challenged you, and what inspired you. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember that one conversation can spark a new beginning. Bye.